This is a short one like me. Dudes with Brews on the Porch presents Michael Brews.
Dude. Appearance number 3 from our friends all the way across the world in Australia. It's Gough from Beernuts talking about his new flick. Gough, how you doing?
I'm very well, fellas, and how are you going?
I'm doing all right. A little tired. I drank too much last night and still powering through.
You didn't drink too much. It was research for the show.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I like that.
That's a good way to put it. So yeah, today was a little bit of a struggle, kind of dragging a little bit, but I'm feeling good now and looking forward to chatting a little bit. You got this new film, How to Land That Dream Job. Tell us about it, where you got the inspiration from, and all the details.
Absolutely, fellas. Well, like you say, we've just released it's our 17th film, How to Land That Dream Job, and it's basically a bit of a mockumentary, giving folks out there a guide on what to do, but probably more what not to do when you're going for a job interview. So basically, I interview 16 different applicants for a range of different jobs, and we sort of take you through a bit of a guide. So yeah, the film goes for 26 minutes. It's a comedy mockumentary, and obviously you fellas had a bit of a sneak preview to the film, so you know what it's all about as well. But hopefully folks out there find it kind of humorous.
I definitely enjoyed it, and as someone who always dreads interviews because you never know what you're gonna say, you never know what they're gonna ask you, what they're gonna throw at you. And I found it quite funny because I've even, as a person who's been in management before, I've gone through these interview processes where some of these people, like, in a sense, reminded me of the applicants in the film, and I was like, oh, it's crazy what people truly do in this interview process that we go through.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, as hard as it is to believe, I reckon all the 16 examples, I reckon I've had a kind of one of those has happened to me when I've been, either auditioning actors or interviewing for different staff. I've had pretty much all of those things have happened to me. So, but like you say, I'm sure when people watch the film, like I say, there's 16 different applicants, but I reckon that people would recognize at least 8 people like, I know a guy like him, or yeah, I've run into a woman like her before. So I think people would recognise quite a few of the characters in the film, because basically I work in stereotypes because I find stereotypes really funny. So they're just exaggerated stereotypes of different people that you run into in your life.
Yeah. That's I definitely know a few people that were in those genres of people. I try not to be any of them. I laughed a lot when I watched it. I really liked the voiceover, like the narration of it. Some of the jokes that you did in there were amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, well, the voiceovers obviously are really important in that just the way the film is structured, so that because it is a mockumentary, so I do have to, for the want of a better word, educate the folks that are watching the film. So, the voiceovers are an important aspect for the comedy, obviously, but also to give it like a false learning experience for the viewer. So, yeah, the voiceovers are an important cog to make it all work.
Yeah, and along with it, so what it kind of inspired you to write this and to create this one?
Well, I had a few. After I did the last film, I was going through some because I've got like a ton of different writing and all that sort of stuff on my computer. So I was having a bit of a look through some sketches and stuff I'd written, and I realised I'd written a couple of little sketches of job interviews. The criminal guy was one that I'd written, and the stuttering guy was another one that I'd written, and there was a couple of others. And I thought, well, what if I sort of put them all together and did like a bit of a guide to the job interviews? So I had about 3 or 4 of them. So then I just had to come up with other segments of society, basically. So because I don't want to miss anybody out. I want to make sure that, I offend everybody equally, you know what I mean? So I make sure that, I'm very fair and balanced. So I had to get every section of society. So I sort of went through in my head of who I'm missing, and then I wrote the little sketches for all of them, and then the voiceovers was the last thing that I wrote. So, so that's pretty much how it all came to be. I was just looking through my work and thinking, well, what can I turn into my next film? And, the idea of why not do a bit of a mockumentary on job interviews, because there's a lot of scope for comedy with that particular subject. So, that's how that came about.
Yeah, we all have to go through that. So,
Yes.
I at the end, it got a little bit like meta in the best way when you were talking about employing unemployed actors and needing to get now go find a job yourself or whatever. I was wondering, just because like when that came up, I haven't seen any of your other films yet. I will definitely be checking them out, but do you use like the same actors for multiple films, or do you always get new people? Or
Well, it's a little bit of both. So those folks who have seen a few of my films before might recognize a few familiar faces, but with this one, there's a couple of, like I say, familiar faces, but no, for this one, there's probably, because there's 21 cast members total, and I'd say there's probably about 6 that I've used before, and the rest were all new. So, look, I go through the same casting process as any film production company. I send the brief out to the agents, and they send me who they think would be a good fit, and I audition them, and if they do a good job, I hire them. So, look, in regards to the actors, it all depends on the role. So, there's a few fantastic actors that I've worked with who aren't in this film, but it's simply because there wasn't a role that suited them. So it's really important. Casting is something that's really important to me, because obviously when you're watching the film, if the actor doesn't suit the role and isn't doing a good job with the role, then it's just not going to be funny. So it's really important that that I take a lot of time with the casting and making sure that I get just the right actors. And I've got to say, I'm really, really happy with the actors that I got for this, and the job they did was just outstanding. I thought they were all really funny, and they did a really, really fine job.
How was it like so you, as you said before, the film is 26 minutes. You had 21 people in the cast. What's that editing process like?
Well, editing's pretty straightforward for this one, because it was reasonably structured. Filming, on the other hand, was a little bit tricky, because obviously we got to sort of get them in and get them out as quick as possible, because we had it's my office that I'm using, but we filmed it on a Sunday, so because I didn't want any other noise around, obviously. So we had the one day to film it, so we just had to sort of churn them in and out, and so rehearsing was something that took a long time, because I worked with the actors a lot beforehand to make sure they were giving just the right performance, exactly what I was after. So I rehearsed them, and then when we came in for filming, we'd sort of sit them down, punch it out, and then get rid of them, pretty much. So it was tricky to organise in regards to that, to making sure that everybody arrives when they need to, get them in makeup, get them down, film them, make sure they do what I want them to do, and then get them out. So they had to be really rehearsed and ready to go, so that we didn't have any hold-ups, because otherwise we would have been there till midnight, which wouldn't have been very fun for the crew. So it was that's pretty much how that went down.
Yeah, I gotta say that's incredibly ambitious of you, and that's something that I think people don't really get the inside scoop sometimes on some of those processes, because to shoot that all in one day is quite the accomplishment and quite a task. I would imagine. I've never done it, but I have somewhat of an idea on how that all goes. So kudos to you, man, and that's pretty crazy. We filmed, obviously, there's 2 locations, because there's the few outdoor scenes at the beginning, but so we filmed them nice and early, and then got to the office, set it up, and pretty much just punched it all out, and like I say, just get them in and out as quick as I can, because, well, the other thing too is obviously I've got to pay the crew, and so I don't want everybody standing around doing nothing or
all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I sort of just planned out the day where an actor comes in sort of every half an hour sort of thing, and just punch them out like that. So yeah, it was a long day, but it worked out really well.
Yeah. So with your writing process, then you said you had wrote kind of, you had skits, on your computer and everything like that, and you punch them all together. Do you often do that? Kind of go refer back to, kind of material that you've had written before, or like when you're looking for inspiration, or how does what is your writing process, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So whenever I have an idea, whatever it might be, whether it be just a little 2-line sketch or a big, long film project, I always write it down as quickly as I can and then just save it. And then when it's time to do the next film or the next audio download or the next book or whatever it might be, I go through all of my notes and writings and all that sort of stuff, and just sort of see what could work and what I could make next, and what's feeling good and all that sort of stuff. So with this one, like I say, I was going through, I've got a whole bunch of sketches written down, and I'm going through and I'm noticing, like I say, that there was about 4 job interview ones. And I thought, well, job interviews are reasonably easy to film because you just sort of need the office and it's just sort of a couple of people and that sort of thing. So I reckon that's something that budget-wise I'd be able to afford to do that. And so yeah, I reckon if I turned that into a film, I reckon that could work. And so that's sort of how that went about. So yeah, when I'm ready to do the next project, that's sort of how that goes down. I go through all my notes and all that sort of stuff and see what I can do, what's going to work and what's going to be funny, and what's feeling good as well. So there's some really good stuff that I've written that I haven't gotten around to doing just because of, well, for budget reasons, or just because I just wasn't sort of feeling that script wasn't really working for me at the time, or whatever it might be. So yeah, I sort of, like you say, I sort of get inspiration from something that I've written in the past, and yeah, that I sort of flush it out and edit it and turn that into the next project. There was actually, when I was first starting out, a scriptwriter here in Australia who helped me out a lot. He said to me one day, he said, never ever throw anything you've written away. Don't delete anything, because you never know. He said in 10 years' time, you might have written a script, and then in 10 years' time, you come back to it and you go, oh, I know the magic piece that was missing from that script. I just need to make this small tweak and it's going to be great. So he said, even if something doesn't feel right or it's not really that funny or whatever it might be, he said, never delete it or anything like that. Always save it, always keep it. And you never just know, in 5, 10 years, 15 years' time, when you come back to it, you might suddenly go, there's the magic piece of the puzzle I need. So I took that advice on board, and I think it's really good advice because, yeah, when you're going through your notes and stuff, you forget a lot of the things that you've previously written. And so it's good to sort of remind yourself, and you go, I think I could make that work and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that was some good advice that was given to me.
Yes, sometimes you just need to walk away. You get too close to things. But I'm glad you brought
absolutely, man. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, we've all had, it doesn't matter what profession you're in, we've all had that time where we're really frustrated at something, and sometimes you just need to take a break, have a walk down the shops or listen to some music or go see a movie or do something just to give your brain a break for 2-3 hours. And then when you come back to it fresh, all of a sudden you're like, I know what I need to do. So I think it doesn't matter every walk of life. I mean, that's absolutely the truth. Sometimes you can be too close to something and you just need to give it a rest for 5 minutes.
You said that that the person who gave you that advice was another writer, which actually brings me to my next question, which is when you're on set, I know from your last interview with Drew that you don't like to do ad-libbing while you're shooting and stuff. You keep to the script. Do you take notes, or did you get any help with some of the skits, or did you write all that and then just stick right to it, or was there any times that you were like, somebody was like, maybe this would be funny here or this would be funnier there, or did any kind of editing on the spot, I guess?
No. I'm really strict. So I edit my scripts really, really particularly. So even down to even the stuttering guy, I even had written in the scripts where I want those stutters to happen. So I'm really, really anal. It annoys a lot of the actors a lot, but it's just how I am. But like even to the point of when we were editing the film, I was open-minded in regards to, well, if I need to swap, employee 7 and employee 8 to make the film work better, I can do that. But I didn't end up doing that. It's how it was written is exactly how you see it. So yeah, it's pretty much word perfect from the script right through to what you see. Because yeah, I spend a lot of time writing my scripts, and I'm really particular about the jokes and how they're delivered and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, no, what you fellas saw was what was on the page.
So speaking of how to land that dream job and everything like that, as a filmmaker, what would your dream project be if budget wasn't a question, casting wasn't a question, anything like that? What is your dream project you would like to do?
Oh, I think all filmmakers have a couple of scripts that they're sitting on where, if, like you say, if you just waved a magic wand and you had the budget, you'd get into it. So I've got a couple of sort of big budget scripts that I would love to make one day, and hopefully, hopefully that can happen. I mean, that's what I'm working towards. So there's no reason why it can't. I just obviously need to encourage everybody to support Beernuts Productions and support what I do. And one day, they might say because the projects are obviously, this is the biggest one that I've done so far. I've never worked with 21 actors, and yeah, we had about 7 crew. So yeah, this is the biggest one I've done so far. So they are getting bigger and better slowly but surely. So hopefully it won't be too far off. But yeah, no, there's a few big projects that I would love to really do one day. So yeah, absolutely. But I think that's the same for all creative filmmakers. They're all sitting on a big masterpiece that they'd love to make. Yeah,
absolutely. And one thing I would recommend is if you can somehow land Anne Hathaway and then cast me in it, so I can make out with her, I would greatly appreciate it. And that's all I have to do. I don't need any lines. Just have her smooch with me.
You could be corpse number 3, and she could bring you back to life. Yeah,
I would wear the corpse number 3 title with I'd be the best corpse number 3 you'll ever see.
It's a perfect metaphor.
Well, I mean, Anne and me are on really good terms, so I'll just give her a call. Yeah. I'm sure she'll be totally cool with it.
I appreciate that. I really do. So you have you said you shot in your office. That's your kind of your job office right now that you have, right?
Well, that's like Beernuts Productions is my job. That's my work. So yeah, I've got a little office set up that I rent from a very nice person who doesn't charge me too much for the rent. And yeah, so that's just where all the Beernuts Productions magic happens. Is a lot of it is in that room that you see on camera. Because look, when you don't have a lot of money, you got to be practical. So I mean, why go out and sort of hire an office for a day when I've got one already? So that was one of the good things about this particular film, was that I didn't have to look too hard for the locations, because it's essentially just an office and then an exterior outside a house. So we used the production guy's house. Simon, we used his house for those outside scenes, and then we just drove down to my office. So yeah. But Beernuts Productions is that's full time for me. That's all I'm about. So that's 100%.
Awesome. I was gonna ask, because a lot of times, like with the podcast and stuff, I don't necessarily tell the people I work with about it, because I'm worried about them getting pissed off at me if I say something and that's wrong. So I was gonna say, how do you handle even though it's in jest and it's a comedy, of course somebody out there is gonna get mad about the littlest thing, and so I was just gonna kind of see how you battle that.
Well, don't worry. The actors get mad and the crew get mad at me all the time. So, I'm always in trouble. So there's never a problem with that. Somebody's always got the shits with me. That's always just how it goes.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough.
I don't think there's a question here, but I just I guess one of the things that the theme that I'm getting from your filmmaking style is preparation is key. So
Well, it is. Yeah,
it really
100%.
shows. I think it comes through well. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, you are correct. I mean, organisation is something that's so important because, I mean, when you've got, like I say, we had 21 actors in this. I mean, if I hadn't been organised and prepared and rehearsed them, then, I mean, it just would have been a complete mess. I mean, goodness knows what would have what the final product would have been, a complete disaster. So, I mean, organisation and preparation is just so important, especially with filmmaking, but I'm sure with all industries, I guess, you know, I mean, even with podcasting, with what you fellas do, I mean, you have to be organised and prepared, or what comes out is just going to be a mess. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in being really, really super organised and prepared. And look, even down to even things like budgeting, of course, because I've got to pay everybody. So I've got to make sure that, you know, I've got the budget to do what I want to do. And I've got to go through all that stuff really carefully to make sure that, I mean, with the props that I use, some of them I have to buy, some of them I can borrow from people, and then some of them, you know, will be things that I already own. So, you know, it's little things like that you got to think about, that when you're first starting out, when you first get the script done, the next thing you got to do is budget it and be prepared and go through all those little bits and pieces to make sure that you've got all the minor details all sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. And with you know, your films, you a lot of times you go the comedic route, which I definitely appreciate. I'm definitely a big comedy guy, but something that me and Rob have talked about and have drafted a little bit is creating a horror flick. Would that be like? Have you ever looked into doing something like that?
Well, I haven't, to be honest with you, but I mean, horror is a really cool genre to make, and it would be because, I mean, it kind of like comedy. I mean, it's something that isn't as difficult to make as what people might think. I mean, if you've got a really good makeup team and all that sort of stuff, then, I mean, because the great thing about horror is what gives people the heebie-jeebies isn't what you see, it's what you don't see. So, you know, you can have the sound of the knife along the glass, or the creaking of the timber and all that kind of stuff. That's what gives people the frights more than seeing, you know, bloody corpses and all that sort of stuff. But so horror is and I would imagine, I don't know, I've never done it, but I would imagine that it would be a fun thing to do, like comedy, because people have a lot of fun with horror films. So I think instead of a big heavy drama, I think a horror film would be a lot of fun to make as well. So it's yeah. I mean, look, I encourage all people to get into it. I mean, if you've got a script written, I mean, just get started. I mean, there's nothing, you've got nothing to lose by giving it a crack. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's how Beernuts Productions sort of got started to begin with, was that, you know, I was having trouble finding funding from the traditional funding bodies, and I had some really cool scripts that I wanted to make. So I just thought, well, if they're not going to support me and fund my work, then why don't I just do it myself? So I did. And then, you know, so I started up Beernuts Productions, and I thought, well, how am I going to distribute my work? And I thought, well, why don't I just do direct download from the website? So I did. So, yeah, so, I mean, that's sort of how Beernuts Productions came to be, was that, you know, I wasn't getting a lot of love from others. So I thought, well, I'll just do it myself. And it, you know, because I knew that people would find my work really funny, you know, because I find it funny, obviously. So I thought that other people, surely somebody else would share my strange sense of humor. So I thought, why not just get into it? And so that's pretty much what I did.
Yeah, and oddly enough, for this horror movie idea, I was actually considering to be corpse number 3 again, reprise my role.
Yeah.
You'll typecast yourself. I mean, you know, every time we watch a Hollywood film, we'll just see you as corpse number 3. I mean,
At least
you don't want to
number
typecast yourself. Maybe try for corpse number 4 this time.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the DIY kind of ethos that you carry, and I think, you know, kind of the way of the future is kind of going to be this direct download when it comes to independent work like that. And I think it's pretty awesome that you can reach a pretty a mass number of people doing it that way. It's I don't know. I think it's something that people don't really understand the work that goes behind it, and the possibility behind it. So I think you're doing outstanding work, and it's awesome.
I agree on both of those fronts, 100%. I mean, I think you're absolutely correct. I don't think people do understand the work that goes into one of my projects, because there is a lot of hard work involved. And then I also don't think people understand, like you say, how to get it, like how direct download. I mean, here in Australia, it's not that big. Like, I mean, there's not too many people doing what I do. Whereas, I mean, overseas in America and Canada and the UK and stuff, it's a lot more common for people to sort of download their entertainment. Whereas here in Australia, we're still sort of stuck on sort of commercial TV, and Netflix is big, obviously. But I mean, that's sort of really the only one. So people don't sort of understand that if you go to, beernutsproductions.com, you can actually download a film and get entertainment. Just like it's no different to podcasting. I mean, it's the same sort of situation. In you go to the Dudes with Brews website, you listen to the podcast, you get yourself some entertainment. So it's exactly the sort of same thing. And when you think about it, fellas, I mean, 20 years ago, this opportunity for me just wouldn't have been here. And the same with you guys. I mean, there was no such thing as podcasting back in the late 90s, and there was no such thing as people downloading movies, from websites back in the late 90s. So we're really lucky that technology has advanced so that we can do what we do. I mean, we are quite lucky in that regard.
Yeah, it's we live in this world where the consumer the person making or creating can put their actual vision out, because they have the freedom when you fund your own things and you produce your own things. I mean, there's one of my favorite writers created his own online channel 101, and now he writes Rick and Morty and some really big shows. So like eventually, if you just keep doing it, it'll work out. And I think it shows, like, the fact that if you write for yourself, you find it funny, other people find it funny too. So,
well, that's the other good thing, like you mentioned, is that, like, I have nobody breathing down my neck saying you can't do this joke because it's too inappropriate, or you need to make sure that the length of the film goes for 22 minutes and 8 seconds or anything like that. So there's no third party involvement, which means that I get to do exactly what I want to do, which means that hopefully the people out there get a better project because I've got nobody, interfering with what I do, which I think is a really cool thing. That means that, because I always tell the actors, because some of the actors obviously who are used to doing commercial work, they stress out sometimes when I'm rehearsing with them as to how long a scene needs to be. And I always say to them, a joke takes however long it takes to tell. So you never ever stress, you just do it how it needs to be done, and that's it. There's nobody telling us that there's a time limit or anything like that. So we can just do what we do, and I think it makes for better entertainment all round, not just with me, but with everybody. I mean, you fellas don't have anybody, telling you what you can and can't say or what you can and can't do. So it means that, you get to produce the podcast that you want to produce, and therefore, hopefully, people get a better product, which I think they do, because there's nobody who doesn't because, I mean, the more people involved, the more misunderstandings and the more things get toned down and all that sort of stuff. So I think the more that just the creative people are involved, the better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the voice that breathes down my neck and Rob's neck when it comes to the podcast, because it's kind of an ongoing trend where now I really haven't edited anything out in a long time, but Rob always goes, "Oh, you're gonna edit this out, aren't you?" Because he sees the look on my face, but I've been getting better at not doing it.
Yeah, I still say it, and he we'll figure it out after. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Is it so in America, there's a pretty huge PC movement, both that like impact, I think, the world and don't impact the world. Do you guys have that in Australia where people get pissed off about anything and everything?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. I try to ignore it because, look, I'm a big believer in that when it comes to comedy, if something is told with the funny bone, then it's acceptable. You know, I mean, we've all been to the best example I can give is we've all been to a party and somebody at the party has told a joke, and it might be a rude joke or whatever, but it's just not funny. The joke's not funny. Now, the guy wasn't trying to be mean or nasty or malice in any way. He was just trying to lighten the mood with a joke. Now, the joke might not be funny, but that his intent was good intent. You know, he didn't have bad intent. He had good intent. So just because a joke isn't funny to you doesn't mean that all of a sudden that we should, you know, string the guy up. He was trying to do a funny thing. He was trying to be nice and make people laugh, which is a wonderful thing to do. So I honestly believe that when it comes to like Beernuts Productions, I mean, some people might. There are warnings on the site that say, you know, if easily offended, don't watch this film. But I suppose I've pre-warned people. But I mean, everything I do is meant with humour, and so I don't see that anybody should take any kind of offence because everything I do is good intent to make people laugh and smile and have a good time, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a very firm believer that, you know, everything can be joked about, you know, and it's all about delivery, time, place. And if you're going to sit down to watch a comedy, whether it be a stand-up set, a comedy film, you go in the mindset knowing that they want to make people laugh, that none of this is an attack. It's just we're here to have a good time and laugh at some of the things that make us uncomfortable at times.
Break down barriers, really.
I mean, my latest film, How to Land That Dream Job, is a really good example because, I mean, I pick on every corner of society in that particular film. I mean, there's hopefully I haven't left anybody out because I wanted to make sure that every corner of society, whether you're rich, poor, doesn't matter, you know, everybody gets their equal whack, and that's really important to me. You know, if we're gonna, we got to, you know, just make jokes and be a bit more lighthearted about everybody and everything, you know.
I was a big fan of like all the little jabs, as Rob was kind of saying before, you know, with the voiceover work and how he just gives that last second jab.
Yeah,
it caught me every time, and I was like, oh, it's funny. Because that's kind of like the way I do things too. You know, like when I'll say something and then I'll just be like, oh yeah, you bitch, you know, or something like that. Just but
yeah, like I agree with you. Like I say, you know, it was really important to me. You know, if you're going to pick on somebody, you got to pick on everybody, and that's just how I like to go about it. You know, so yeah. But yeah, I'm really proud of the film. I thought, like I say, I thought the cast did a wonderful job, and hopefully folks out there find it really, really funny.
Yeah, and I think they will. And so let's talk about how they can watch this flick.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you just go on to beernutsproductions.com, so nice and easy, just beernutsproductions.com, and hit the movies page, and you'll see all of our films are up there, but obviously the How to Land That Dream Job is the first one in line, and you can just download it directly off the website. And we're also, Beernuts Productions is on all the social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we also have a YouTube channel which has all of the trailers for all of the films and the audio downloads and books and everything. There's some trailers on there and just some other media clips and some other just general clips as well on the Beernuts Productions YouTube channel. But look, beernutsproductions.com is really the only place that people need to, well, besides, of course, the Dudes with Brews website, but besides that wonderful site, the Beernuts Productions website is where people can download and enjoy all of our work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I really appreciate you hopping back on the show. And anytime you want to talk, anytime you got something to plug, or if you just want to shoot the shit, let us know, man. We love having you on, and I definitely encourage everybody to check out your work. You know, watch How to Land That Dream Job. The prostitution one was really good too, and it's I think independent artists need to be supported way more. So they need to let's do it, and let's make you a millionaire so I can make out with Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good goal to have. I concur completely with your sentiments. I mean, if for no other reason, everybody should want to watch you make out with Anne Hathaway. I mean, surely, I mean, she's keen, you're keen. The public need to make it happen.
I think we're onto something, and I think we'll keep talking.
Either you'll end up making out with Anne Hathaway or get sued by Anne Hathaway. But either way, you'll get to meet her because you'll see her in court, so it'll be fine.
Possibilities are endless right now.
Yeah.
I like it.
Dream job. Go for it.
Well, one quick, because I follow you fellas on Instagram, and I see you put up the beers and whatnot that you've been trying. I'm just curious if there's a new brew out that you've tried recently that you've been really enjoying.
I think the one that for me, as of late, that was probably my favorite. We had a guava IPA, a guava mango IPA. That was really, really good. It's made in Wisconsin from a real small brewery, so you kind of have to come to the States to get it. But, I mean, I'm IPAs all the way. I love them very much. But this one was probably one of my favorites. And Rob, who isn't an IPA guy, enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like stouts mostly. I really like the Scotch stout that we did, but the more recent one that we drank was the raspberry milk, which was really good.
Yeah, raspberry milk stout. That was from Colorado, a brewery in Colorado. So, what do you guys drink? What do you drink over there? Do you drink it all?
Yeah, no, I do enjoy. I do enjoy a good drink. In regards to beer, I like a bit of everything, to be honest. Like, as in, I like rum. In Australia, Bundaberg rum is kind of like our national drink. Like in Canada, they've got rye. In Australia, we've got Bundaberg rum. It's a dark rum. And it's funny, actually, when I was in Canada, I had a bottle with me, and I gave a rum and coke to a Canadian friend of mine. And because it's made out of pure sugarcane Bundaberg rum, because it's a big sugarcane area, Bundaberg, and so he had a mouthful of it, and he's like, I think I just went into a diabetic coma. This is far too sweet for me. So, but that's our national. But in regards to beer, I know I've spoken to you before about Bolter Brewing Company. They've just actually launched in America, Bolter Brewing.
Okay.
Because we actually filmed in The War on Drugs, one of our mockumentaries, we actually filmed a scene at the Bolter Brewing Company because we needed like a science lab kind of thing, and so we used their brewery as a filming location. They were really, really cool to film at, and like really cooperative, letting us film there and everything. And I think I've told you before, it's run by Mick Fanning and Joel Parkinson, who are two world surfing champions, and they had a bit of spare coin, so they started a brewery about 2-3 years ago, and they're kicking such big goals that I think about, because I follow them on Instagram as well, I think about 3 or 4 months ago they launched in America. So if you do a bit of research, you might be able to try some of the Bolter Brewing Company beers. But they're quite nice, actually. I quite like their brews. There's nothing. I'm just trying to think. They've got a nice stout which you'd enjoy. But they don't have the fruity flavors like your mangoes and your raspberries and all that sort of stuff. They're more sort of traditional kind of wheat hoppy beers. So, but I quite enjoyed their beers. We're actually getting quite a few microbreweries sort of pop up now, which is really cool because it seems to be. I think it's sort of the same with film. Independent film is sort of becoming a little bit more popular and commercial, I suppose. And I suppose the same thing with breweries as well. The microbreweries are more fashionable now. So people there's a few down the other end of the Gold Coast where I live, down in Burleigh, there's a few microbreweries that have just started up, and you actually can, you go in there and you can do a tour if you want to, but you can just sit at the bar and drink their beers and on a Thursday afternoon. So it's sort of a pub brewery sort of a situation, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's what a lot of them here in Wisconsin are too. It's either they just serve their beer, it's a smaller place where they essentially brew it right in front of you, bottle it right in front of you, and you can get it on their tap. Some of the bigger ones, they serve food, have a big restaurant and everything like that. It's pretty crazy the number of breweries that are in the States and in Wisconsin in particular. And they're all a little bit different, and they're all I want to drink them all.
Yeah, straight to consumer is the new way to go, I think.
Yeah, well, I like it, man, because like I say, I'm an independent filmmaker with Beernuts Productions, and I encourage people to go to my website and download the film. So, I like also on the flip side, I also like supporting people who are doing, independent ventures. So, like the microbreweries and that kind of stuff. I like supporting them and going there and checking out their beers and what they've got to offer because, it's important to support local independent, whether it be entertainment, beers, or whatever it might be. It's always good to support, the people who are trying something a bit new and a bit different.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not supporting these people, these independent artists, these these kind of mom and pa shops and stuff like that, you're just gonna, and you're giving it all to these commercial folks, you're just gonna be getting the same shit
watered down.
Yeah. And whereas a lot of these microbreweries take risks with trying out different new beers, new types of beers, new flavors. Then whereas Budweiser isn't going to do that.
No, I agree 100%, man. I agree, yeah, absolutely 100%. I mean, that's why I think it's really important because, and the other thing too is you might discover something that you really love. So there might be a local brewery and you have one of their beers and you go, wow, this is really delicious. I love this. And then, you buy a six pack every weekend or whatever. So you've discovered something that if you had have just stuck to the normal stuff, you never would have known that it existed, and you would have been missing out on something that you really enjoyed. And again, that comes back to what I do and all that sort of stuff. It's important that people sort of branch out and try new and different things because they might actually end up enjoying it more than the commercial crap that they're used to, like you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're both headed in the right directions. Beernuts Productions is doing a lot of great things, and I want everyone to check out your stuff. And our podcast has been getting a little more traction, getting some more listeners, and it's a lot of fun, and I love doing it. And we really appreciate you being on the show, man. And like I said, anytime you want to be on, we'll get you on. My daughter's giving me a death glare right now, so I'm not sure what she needs. So I should address her.
Yeah, and the clinic closes. They won't let me in, so I got to get out of here.
Closes at 4, I believe.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot for being on here, and we'll plug all your stuff in the show notes. We'll tag you on Twitter and all that stuff, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Thanks, fellas, for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it, and you fellas have a great night.
Yeah, great meeting you, man.
Likewise.
Pew pew audio. Goodbye, everyone.